All right, good morning, Kyle and Sean.
Good morning.
How are you guys?
Doing well, doing well. How are you?
Great. Okay. I see we've got several people on the call, but we'll wait another minute or two. Let me just move hide my thumbnails here. Okay. Sounds great. So we'll wait just another minute and let me see our participants. Fantastic. All right. Good morning, everybody who's on the call. We're going to get started here shortly. Just wait for a couple more people to join. Seems like people are still coming in. Okay. See if Karen's on the call. Fantastic. Okay. Well, I think while people are rolling in, maybe I'll just do a quick introduction here. Joanna Sobran, MXOtech. Thank you, everybody, for participating today. A lot of clients are on the call, and we invited our clients specifically and some of our friends and prospects because we wanted to, especially for a customer, share with you a little bit about our application development side of our business. So Sean Blair, who's going to be the main presenter today, he's our Chief Technology Officer. He runs that side of the business, and Kyle is our UX UI designer. But for our MSP clients, many of you, we do a lot of your IT support, everything from help desk to security, but we don't oftentimes talk about what we do on the application side. And over the last few years, we had a couple of our MSP clients who engaged with us on projects around technology that's really helped them grow and differentiate their businesses. And so we've had clients, everything from helping them take their quoting process from 2 weeks down to 2 hours. We've had clients that eliminated 10 FTEs because they didn't have to do data entry anymore. And we integrated their systems together. And then you'll see some examples of other clients towards the end. We're going to show you actual examples of platforms that we have developed and or designed for clients based on their business needs. And so many people, when they talk about application development, it's kind of a broad, loose term. And what we wanted to do today, and I asked Sean and Kyle to really focus today's session on how does one get started with streamlining their business inefficiencies or developing a platform that allows them to work remotely or differentiate with their competitors. And so what we're going to walk you through today is how we've worked with clients in taking their old applications, inefficient processes, and creating a vision for them that then turned into a prototype, like a live working prototype, and eventually an application. And some of the examples you'll see, which I think a lot of people, you know, when they talk about technology, it's such a broad topic, right? But what we've done for our clients is help them use it in a way to help with their business. And so Sean is going to walk you through kind of the process and then some examples. So you'll see, like, here were, you know, papers and faxes and spreadsheets, and now here's this platform. And then we have a really great offer at the end. So I want you guys to all stay to the end because we have something exciting we wanted to do during this time to help some of our clients and friends who are on the call. So without further ado, I'm going to let Sean take over, and Kyle's going to be here for questions. He's one of our UX UI designers, and he's going to answer some questions throughout the presentation and towards the end. If you do have questions, if you could put them into the chat, that would be fantastic. And if they're like relevant in that particular slide, I'll bring them up, or we can save them for the end. So thank you. And Sean, please take it over.
Alrighty. Thanks, Joanna. So one of the questions, we had originally planned to do this webinar earlier, but due to all the circumstances that everyone is going through, we really wanted to take some time and think about what this meant for all of our beloved clients and friends who are on this call. And so we thought, why is this relevant now? We think it's relevant now because any time, at least in my lifetime, it's time to get scrappy and think about what it means when we come out of the end of this thing that we're all in together. So we thought recovering means two things. It means strategically reducing your costs, and then it also means strategically lowering your risk. Now we're talking about the context of core business platforms that you have. A lot of our customers, they started adopting technology 15, 20 years ago, and then many of them along that timeline started to realize that they needed to aggregate data, and so they've done so oftentimes using spreadsheets or access databases. Sometimes they've hired an in-house developer or maybe just a single person shop. And over time, these like access databases and one-person developed applications tend to grow. However, when they start that way, it becomes difficult for these systems to be maintained. We've had customers who have had access databases from 2003 that are just no longer supported by Microsoft. And so that means if that thing dies, they're in real trouble. It also means reducing costs, and getting strategic means that you'll reduce the cost to scale your business too. So I mentioned those single developed desktop applications. We've had some customers who realize that this thing is now core to their business, and so they have to serve this thing up to their customers somehow. And so they sort of hack together a system where they could maybe offer it over RDP, but it's just extremely expensive to scale it, to roll it out to customers. And then finally, this is something that is probably near and dear to many people's hearts now. We realize that we also need the ability to use the software from anywhere. The access databases and Excel spreadsheets is a good use case for this. A lot of times, that means that you're going to need to have some connectivity to the back office. Sometimes, that can be difficult to do. Sometimes in access databases, you can't have more than one person in a particular part at a time. All these things can be very frustrating and very costly to your business. So not only reducing costs and making it so you can use the software from anywhere, but it also means lowering risk. So I mentioned, unsupported software. This is a real problem with a lot of these older databases and technologies. If something happens to that, A, it'll be difficult to find somebody who can help you, and B, the vendors often don't support it. Sometimes too, it requires you to maintain old technology. We had one customer who had a platform that would only run on older system architecture, which means they bought as many computers from like 2002 that they could find, because that's the only type of computer that this would run on. It would not run on modern 64-bit platforms. So lowering your risk, old tech, poses a risk of systemic failure because it could be unsupported, and then also scarce resources that are difficult to get your hands on. So we feel this is timely. We've heard from a lot of our customers, they realize that they want to come out of this ready to scale, ready to get rolling. And so we're going to present to you a process for that. So Houston, we have a problem. Our customers built a platform that became core to their business, as we mentioned, oftentimes in Excel, Access, old Windows applications built by one or two people, old database technologies. So what happens is over time, your platform gets changed, becomes updated. A lot of times people have had several people working on it, so it's kind of piecemeal. A bunch of different types of approaches to the database makes it difficult to get any meaningful data out of your platform. And not only that, and that happens because technology changes constantly. So what this does is it leaves your business with a technology that's outdated. It's could be buggy. It might be, might be functional, but not user-friendly. Could be unsupported, which is, as we mentioned a second ago, risky, and can't be accessed remotely by all end users. And so this requires a bunch of workarounds. Very expensive, very frustrating for you and for your clients and possibly your employees. So what if old technology isn't really the problem, but it's an opportunity now to actually scale your business? The problem that we see that a lot of people have is that there is a whole bunch of fear, uncertainty, and doubt when it comes to commissioning a project to revolutionize your core business application. The reason why is you're asking yourself, how expensive is this going to be for my company? How long is it going to take? What are we going to do to make sure that we're focusing on the actual core business app and constrain cost and scope? And then most importantly, how can we be sure that we're going to get exactly what we need? These are the questions that often stop business owners and leaders from commissioning any sort of transformation to their core business application, because these are scary. If you don't know how expensive it's going to be and you don't know what you're going to get in the end, I don't think I would buy either. So here's the old way that companies like ours have tried to solve this problem. I've seen this, by the way, not just in specifically focused software development firms, but I've seen this in some of the high-end consulting companies here in Chicago as well. Everyone approaches this in a very similar way. So the old way, the way that companies have done this for 20-some years, 20 plus years, there's going to be an analysis up front. They're going to take a look at your systems, possibly your databases, your applications. They're going to ask you a bunch of questions. They're going to enumerate some requirements, probably a functional specifications, functional spec, give you some data modeling, and then they're going to give you, and then during this discovery process, most firms will charge for that if they're doing due diligence, because this takes time. Every firm that develops an application to revolutionize your business has to do a lot of discovery in order for them to be able to create an actual statement of work that spans an entire project. The thing about these core business platforms is it took you 10 years to build it, 10 plus years to build it. So it's not going to take you 2 months to replace it. So this analysis can be very, very timely, or very, very time intensive, can be expensive. And in the old way, they are not going to be able to give you things that are going to remove the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. So these statements of work, they're going to try to cover the entire project, but the reality is that it's a highly educated guess at best. So you have a statement of work that could be time and materials. It could be fixed bid, and that's going to roll into development where they're actually building the application. And most firms are going to use Agile these days. You'll hear Scrum, Kanban, Extreme Programming. There's a bunch of different flavors of it. Agile is great because it addresses the elephant in the room, which is you can't know everything there is to know about a project because software is built for humans to use. And humans can't tell you exactly how they want to use it until they get in there and play with it. So Agile is great because it expects unknowns, and an Agile team can then respond. However, when you have a statement of work and you're trying to project costs for the scope of an entire project, these changes that Agile will allow the team to adjust are really, really pointing out the elephant in the room that there's just unknowns. And so we want to pioneer, or we want to show you a process that removes those unknowns up front. So the old way, again, the end result is that somebody loses. Almost always, unfortunately. I heard the story recently from a place I used to work. They had a huge project covering 2 years, many, many millions of dollars, and they ended up having to write off like half the project because there's no way for the team to know everything about it. So as I mentioned, somebody loses. It's either going to be the customer that overpays, or the consulting firm is going to write off a bunch of hours to try to finish the project. Best case in the old way is that it's close to the estimate. However, you've got a 10-year-old product, 10-plus-year-old product that you need to rebuild. So the unknowns plus the complexity times the amount of time equals increase in costs. So in other words, time is money, friend. So what's the solution? So the solution is we need something. We need a process that removes these unknowns, removes educated guessing, and allows clients to control the cost to a high degree. So that's the process I'm just about to go over with you. So Kyle's on the line here too. And he and I and our team here have done something that we think is great because it's aimed at reducing those unknowns and that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, because it marries two things. It marries design thinking and it marries agile. It does so by several steps. And basically, I'm not going to go through all these in a huge amount of detail, but what we do is we start off by defining your vision and your X factor. So that means somebody like Kyle, one of our highly talented UI UX designers, is going to come with another member of our team. They're going to hear from your team. They're going to do something like paper prototyping so that they can quickly help you figure out what makes your product special, what makes it unique to your business and valuable to your customers. And so that rolls right into user research and rapid prototyping. You're going to see some of this prototyping here coming up. This is really where, I mentioned during the agile process that humans can't know everything about a software product until they start to interact with it. So this gives you very early on, something to interact with and remove those unknowns. Then we roll right into getting feedback from the client. We refine this prototype into a high fidelity prototype, which allows you to click through it, to play with it just like it's normal software. Again, we're going to see a demo of that here real shortly. And then we prioritize the top domains. And then for what we've prototyped, we roll right into the agile process wherein we focus on the functions that are in that prototype. Every 2 weeks, you get to inspect working software. You get to respond to it. Small changes can be made, and then we go into testing, deployment of those features right back into the next section of your overall app in the prototype. So what does this process look like overall? This might seem like a lot. The great thing about this prototyping process, this first part of the business process experience discovery, is that it's for a system that has taken you 10 years to build. We can start this project in this discovery phase in 8 to 12 weeks for all in. So the first thing I mentioned is, the first 2 to 3 weeks is what we call purple labeling. I mentioned what's the X factor, and you get that low fidelity prototype that that will help drive this out and give you something to look at right away. That might look a little bit like this. That's not Kyle, and this is not me, but on the screen here, you're seeing that they are doing paper prototyping. They're saying, okay, I need a phone, I need to be able to make a call here. Let's place this here. They're talking about things that make your product great. And this allows us to get early feedback and help really set the tone for this project. Next up is that we'll transform this into a mid-fidelity prototype. And so this means taking those sticky notes and those whiteboard designs and turning them into something that you can actually look at on a screen that looks like working software. It allows us to get feedback pretty quickly, and it allows us to approach a high fidelity prototype. And the high fidelity prototype is really where I think the magic is. The reason why I think it's magical is because you actually get to play with what looks like working software. Our developers, my team of developers here at MXO, we've been together since I've been here, and they love this because it removes a lot of the unknowns for them. They don't have to think about UI UX design because it's done for them, approved by the client. It's what the client already loves, and they just get to deliver what the client has already said that they loved. And
Sean, not only our developers, but our client staff will get to play with the prototype, which will show you exactly what those are like. Love it, because what they see in a prototype is exactly what they get in the end result application. So I think it's a win-win, on our side and on the client side.
Yeah, and this is really, if you said, yeah, this is exactly what I want toggle buttons here, I want this logo here, I need the menuing to operate like this, I need this for, functionality, that's where the removal of the fear, uncertainty, and doubt happens. And then the final part of this is that you'll also get a functional specification document and a delivery of that high fidelity prototype. With prototypes and with software, there are things that happen in the background called business rules that you can't really see on a screen. So functional specifications are a great place for those rules to live. So the combination of the hi-fi prototype and the functional spec for your product is just transformative. It allows us to give you a fixed bid cost at the end, and it allows you to know exactly what you're going to get. So I mentioned Agile Scrum. I'm just going to quickly say some things. You know, it's just adaptive. We like it because it gives you working software every 2 weeks, typically 2 weeks. Sometimes it's 1 week. It's really responsive to anything that you discover. We love it because it allows us to collaborate with our clients quite well. And you get to see working software every 2 weeks. That's, to me, the best part. Early on in my career, we worked in a quote-unquote waterfall type project delivery. And what would happen then is, you know, we would do discovery, you know, for 6 months, then we go code for 6 months, test for 3 months, and then over a year later, the client would actually see what they got. You can imagine that would be frustrating for the client, and would also mean that you can't really respond to anything if you're not getting feedback continuously. All right, so let's take a look at a few of these, a few of the things that we've built. I'm going to take you a little bit through MXO's journey and my journey here. So what you're seeing on the screen now isn't super cool looking in any way, shape, or form. This was done before we did any sort of design thinking or UI UX design. However, this platform has really been, but what our team has really been good at historically is understanding what is important to a business. And so what you're seeing on the screen here is one example in the construction industry where we're taking, we're helping a customer with their bidding process. So Joanna, I think she mentioned, you know, customers using Excel spreadsheets, and this is one. They were using Excel spreadsheets to manage their entire bidding process, and to help them bid job, or for them to bid a job, they'd have to look at all these architectural drawings, you know, figure out what the supplies were, and it took them about 2 weeks to do a bid, which, as you can imagine, that's a huge roadblock to scaling your business. So our team at the time, before we had any sort of UI UX design, sat down with them, understood their workflow, understood, okay, I'm filling out this Excel spreadsheet, I'm emailing it to Bobby Sue. Bobby Sue's filling in her stuff, emailing it to Joe. Joe's filling in his stuff, and then finally somebody compiles it all. 2 weeks later, you have a bid. Understanding the whole process and also the systems involved allowed us to take them from 2 weeks to 2 hours for bidding, which is huge. They've been able to scale their business simply because of that. They love this so much that they also asked us to add some safety features because, you know, as you in a construction context, OSHA and safety is extremely important. So they can conduct these toolbox talks right on site at a job site, talk about knife safety, and then get signatures right from the field workers right away. And then that way, if there's ever an OSHA concern, they can prove that, yes, we did talk about knife safety. Joanna signed off that she knew how to handle a box knife. Here it is. We actually took this platform, as I mentioned, it become something that's served up in a browser and all their field personnel use, and they realized, hey, you know, it'd be great if we could add a bunch of other things to it. So that led us to integrating another platform into it that allows them to make their own forms. So what you're seeing here is basically self-service form creation, where they can create different sections to house job information or inspection questions. They can specify the different types of questions, excuse me, and it allows them to maintain the platform themselves without having to rely on us. Okay, so next up, I just want to bring sexy back a little bit, like Justin Timberlake. We years ago realized that we could no longer just develop applications that, you know, were functional, but also needed to represent a client well. And so that's when we started to investigate and integrate design thinking into our business process. And so for these next 3 prototypes that you're going to see, these are prototypes. These do utilize design thinking. You can see that they're going to be better looking than what you just saw. Kyle's been revolutionary to this process too. A lot of these are his work. And we'll have some questions going throughout this. So let me start with one in healthcare. Here on the left, you can see some documents. You know, the process before for this healthcare portal was that things were exchanged via email. They had fax documentation. Things were tracked in spreadsheets. Very, very difficult during any sort of audit season. And so what that means is you know, they were having to hire 20 temporary workers during certain seasons. And so that's extremely, can be extremely expensive, obviously, and frustrating to end users. So let me show you the prototype here. Okay, so this is a high fidelity prototype. There is no code behind this, but it allows users to get in here and immediately start playing with the application. So this is a demo for a prototype for a HEDIS application, which is important for accreditation for insurers. And so one of the things that you see here is I'm logged in as one of the doctors that's partnered with this insurance company, or at least that's what the prototype is showing. And one of the things that we're doing here is we're showing them their metrics right away. So during this HEDIS season, these offices have to submit these charts. And so they need to know for the different programs how many charts that they've submitted and how many they have left, which ones they're done. And so it's important to show measures right away. So that's what we're doing here. So I'm going to go to adolescent immunizations, you know, and then it's going to show them broken down by medical group, how many charts they have for each of these medical groups. So we'll go right in. They can see their patient list, and so they can get right in here and they can see questionnaire for this patient for adolescent immunizations. They can see the charts right in the application. And all of this, by the way, is no code, meaning there's no database behind any of this. So this allows them.
So this is, sorry, Sean, this is I just wanted to tell you guys, by the way, you know, this is a healthcare company, but as you can imagine, this could work for really any industry. And the point of it is that these guys had a lot of this paper, you know, faxing and things, and didn't have a lot of reports. And so what happened was these medical nurses, practitioners had to go in order to verify this information that it was all getting completed because it's for compliance, and pull a bunch of data together, spend a whole lot of time, where now Sean just showed you on the prior screen where there's literally reports and real-time data that's displayed showing them how they're doing with each HEDIS measure, right? So if you're in, I know one of our clients is heating and cooling here, right? You could see what was the completion of the jobs that you have done, or if you're, whatever industry you're in, right? The point of this is that it shows you real-time progress. Everything is time-stamped now. They can see when the audit was done. They can see when each study has been completed. And what was really cool is we tied a document management platform to it, and that's where Sean was showing you that document, because they have to have an actual paper physician sign, like, consent form. So what's really neat is now that's tied to that particular member record, which could be your client record, so that not only do you have an electronic version signature, you have also a paper document. And so all of this was integrated versus prior, maybe, you know, having an Excel spreadsheet. And as you can imagine, in an Excel spreadsheet, there's no way you could ever run the type of data and reporting and create these dashboards the way you can, you know, utilizing a platform like this.
Perfect. Okay, let's go on to the next example. All right, the next example is in the energy and utility space. This is one of our beloved clients, QTS. Their business is that they built a training platform for linemen, people who work on power lines and service the electrical grids that we all rely on. These linemen and these utility companies have to comply with various government regulations, as you would imagine. And so QTS developed a system over the course of 10, 15 years. You can kind of see it here in the middle. This is a desktop application that they've had various developers work on and develop. And it's functional, but it's kind of difficult to navigate. You know, there's buttons and a variety of spaces. It kind of looks like a flow chart. It's not super intuitive in terms of the menuing. And then above and below it, you can see the user interface that is functional. However, this is a desktop application, so their way of offering this to their clients in a cloud type infrastructure was to serve this up as a remote app over Citrix, which, as you can imagine, is super difficult to scale. It's expensive to spin up, prone to the issues that Citrix is prone to and RDP apps are prone to. Frustrating for customers, frustrating for their employees, difficult for support staff. So scaling this is something that was really hard for them, very, very hard. And so when we talked to them, we went through our process that I just highlighted with them and came up with this application. So I'm going to show you the prototype here. As you can see here on the right here, it's quite different looking than what you see on the left. So let's check out this prototype. Okay, so again, this is a prototype. There is no code behind this, but all the menuing is intuitive. You can go right to each of the different functions: analyze, design, develop, implement, evaluate. And then notifications are very much like you would expect on a modern day application. They pop right up on the screen. They're easy to dismiss and view. You know, all the functionality is right there at your fingertips. Within the application, everything looks very similar to applications you use on the web today, like LinkedIn. So it's really intuitive for somebody who's using any sort of modern application these days. And so again, this is a no-code solution. There's no database behind this. This is all done in a prototyping tool. And so that means that we can respond to feedback from the client right away. You know, they might want to say, I don't want positions to show on the screen. And so we can remove this right away from the screen. Or in this case, they told us they wanted it and they wanted to be able to turn different positions on and off. And so this just allows us to make those changes really quickly, so they know exactly what they're going to get.
And real, you know, Sean, another cool thing that I just want to point out is you saw that this has the employee photos and titles, their ID information. In the previous application, it was just literally text, right? And people are very visual. And nowadays, especially as we're all working remote, you want to see each other. You want to, just like we're doing, you know, we're using Zoom, we're using Teams, everyone needs to collaborate. So it's really neat, instead of like logging into something that literally has like text and only text on and no visuals whatsoever, now you get to see some of the team members and your customers, everyone interacting together. You could even see their photos, right? In addition to interacting on video, kind of bringing some human and life into those applications, which is really important because after all, it's people working together.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You know, that's the kind of human component that we're looking to add, is making these and this is, by the way, a small business. You know, the previous one you saw, I mean, it's a large company. These guys, they're a nice small business, and this was just key for them. And you can see that they're able to interact, and you could see which employee's active, who's not, you know, active at the moment. So it just brought a lot of human kind of components into it, which I personally myself love about that.
So that 8 to 12 weeks process that I kind of gave you an overview of, that's what we went through with QTS to arrive at this prototype. Once we have a prototype like this agreed upon, we create a very accurate fixed bid statement of work, and what you see is what our team delivers. So that takes away the question of what am I going to actually get, and that's what we love for our customers. Is just there's no more guesswork. You get to see exactly what it is that you're going to get. All right, for our next.
Sean, I have, before you get off this page, I had one other question on that.
Yeah.
What is, when we're looking at this kind of application, like as a business owner, I ask myself, right, there's a cost component, there's a time component. How much time is involved from the client end to bring something like this to life, right? Because it can't just be us developing it. The client really has the business vision, while we can bring the technical vision. They know their business better than us. What is their involvement in this kind of prototyping?
Good question. So in the beginning, or not in the beginning, sort of midway through with those blue and purple bubbles, that shows an 8 to 12 week process. So that's total time for all parties involved, MXO and the client. At the beginning of the project, there is typically a 2-day session. Could be 2 4-hour sessions or 1 8-hour session, wherein we're discovering that X factor and really the vision, and we're also developing we're finding out what makes the product premium and what's important to the customer. On this thing right here that you're seeing, the screenshot of the prototype, you see QTD in this sort of industrial cement-like background. I'm giving you an example why this is important. Early on in the process, we gave them what we thought was a super awesome looking application or look and feel to it. And that didn't grab them as much as their logo being prominent here. So that's why we start with these 2 4-hour sessions, is we want to know what's really important to you, what makes the product premium in your mind. We help define that, and really what the whole purpose of those sessions are is to really drive out the X factor and things that matter. So at the outset, you'll have a fair bit of involvement with the team. Once we finish that paper prototyping and vision session, we'll take everything we've gathered there and we'll refine that into sort of a mid-fidelity prototype that takes a couple weeks. And then we're going to need a couple more sessions to refine that. Those can be anywhere from 2 to 4 hours each. And then that's how we end up arriving at that high fidelity prototype that we just demoed for QTS.
And who from the team is like involved in these sessions?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's really important for stakeholders to be involved, especially at the beginning, and then at any review.
We lost you, Sean. Kyle, maybe I'll unmute you. Do you want to take it over, Kyle?
The person.
Oh, there's Sean.
Oh, there
Okay, you're back. All right. We lost you for a minute, Sean.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
What was the last thing you heard?
It was the stakeholders that need to be involved, and then from there.
Gotcha. Oh, okay. So at the outset, it's going to definitely be the people who know the business best, who carry the company vision. We're going to, in a mid-sized business, that might be the owners. They're going to need to be involved in that paper prototyping session. It could be members of the sales team, business development team,
project managers, yeah.
Whoever's servicing the customer too. It's important for them to be involved.
Yeah, and I think that's really cool because, you get a lot of buy-in, right? Like for me, I'm actually having my own team develop an application for MXO right now and for account management to, enhance our platform. And so I'm having the account managers involved, the manager of that team, our development team, myself, because everyone brings a lot to the table, especially if they've been in your business for a while. They know your business really well, especially the employees who run and manage that particular department or function. And so, and what's really cool is that, from a culture standpoint, I think it does a lot for your team because they get to be a part of something great for your company. That's that sort of brainstorming from those individuals, which I think has, really been fantastic. And for me, our staff adds a lot to the table, especially if they know that function area really well.
In addition to that, if it's okay, I think the other incredible thing about what we do with the BPX process, kind of what Sean had highlighted, when he was going through it, is the inclusion of the end user, because we need to do user experience research in order to drive a platform that is going to work for the user themselves. Because it's one thing to make something that works, but it's another thing to really drive in the needs of that end user. So we want to work directly with them with research and with testing, things like that, in order to make a product or to change a product for them.
Kyle, can you talk about how you did that with QTS real briefly?
Yeah, so actually with QTS, it was perfect timing for us because QTS was holding their annual user summit. So they do every year they hold a summit where all of their users, or I guess it was more like a third of their users, get together in one central location. They talk about the software, talk about the things that they want, talk about the things that it does currently, and what they want to see. Excuse me, they do training sessions, things like that. So I actually flew out there to go to their user summit. We did user interviews. We talked to the people that use the software. We did a roundtable discussion, actually with everybody, including those in QTS and the people that use the software. And we talked about this stuff. And while I was on site there, I was doing paper prototyping, rapid prototyping during these sessions, and kind of coming up with these ideas that incorporated a lot of the features and the functions that QTS wanted to see and the users wanted to see. And from there, after the conference, when I came back to the office, it was consolidating a lot of that information, talking with the client, talking with the team at MXO, and putting together a mid-fidelity prototype for us to refine.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. So not only do we work with your internal users, but also your clients if that opportunity arises. So anyway, we'll move on to the next one, Sean.
Okay. So the next one is in the nonprofit space. If you're in the Chicagoland area, this is for Greater Chicago Food Depository, another beloved client. And so let me give you a quick overview of what they have, and then we'll take a look at the prototype. So what they do is they partner with a bunch of agencies that could be food pantries, soup kitchens, or providers of other types of benefits for folks who need food. And so, they're big, and they distribute to these organizations. And so they need to make sure that these organizations meet certain compliances, like food is stored in the appropriate storage. If they have refrigerators, there are certain temperatures, that there are no rodents or pests, that signage is in certain places. And so right now, they do this all on paper, or before this project started, they did all of the stuff on paper. And so they were thinking, all right, we really need to digitize this because, it's a lot of writing. It's hard to get any sort of analytics from pieces of paper. And so they thought, well, maybe let's try this on SharePoint. So they tried it on SharePoint, and SharePoint is good for certain things, but has its limits as well. And so they asked us to walk through this process with them. They had purchased iPads for the purposes of these audits, and so worked with us to develop this prototype for iOS, which is what we're going to take a look at right now. So the context of this is that they're doing audits. So this is a prototype for iOS. First thing that the user sees when they log in is their calendar. So this is all the scheduled audits for Sarah Connor. So she knows that on Wednesday she's got to go to Lakeview. And so she clicks on that, and she can write in the application, click the navigation button. It pops it right up in Google Maps on her device, and so she can easily find her way there. And then once she's there, she can begin this audit. So this audit is in a very, very familiar format. It feels a little bit like tax software, in that there are different categories you can navigate to. It's really easy to pick the type of visit that you're on. you know, it has just the normal features that you would see on an iPad. Kyle, what do I click next in this prototype?
You just need to click on the right side of the annual button.
Oh, that's right.
Yep.
There we go.
That's
Boom.
all.
And then once you once they check the type of visit, they can confirm details. They can easily put in the contact information, who they talk to at the agency, and then begin the audit. And so the audit questionnaire is detailed because they have to check a lot of different things, but the form is simple to fill out. You know, it's just quick, easy, yes, no, allows for different comments if they want. And then they can just easily proceed through this thing. Now, if something is not filled in all the way, like the last one, I didn't click all the buttons, you know, they can easily see, oh, you know, this is in yellow, I must have forgotten something. You know, they could, and then eventually they click through the whole thing towards the end, and then they get to see, you know, all the answers to the questions they asked. You know, it's all broken down into different types of sections and then the answers that they had. And then they can finalize this. They can also, if there are any follow-ups required for that agency, they can issue those right now, right on the spot, service their agency and have them make corrections if they need to. And then they can sign right inside the application. So this was this has followed the same process that we've outlined here. This prototype shows exactly how the forms need to operate, the different sections of the form, captures the fact that they need a signature from the food depository and the agency that they're auditing, shows what it'll look like with the keyboard involved, and then allows them to know exactly what they're going to get. So our team took, I think, 6 weeks to finish this prototype with the back and forth that we talked about, the collaboration that we talked about. And this really will save the food depository a lot of time. Moving from paper forms and different things like that to a digitized process that that sends data back right to their system, to their ERP, allows them to get reporting, allows the management to see who's doing what audit, to approve the results of audit really easily without having to go dig paper out of a file cabinet. Makes their life quite a bit easier, allows their field personnel to use this anywhere they're at. This app too is designed to be, and Joanna mentioned this, that some of the difficulties for this is that you need technical people as well to be involved. All of our applications, iOS applications, are designed with an offline first mentality, meaning that this will be able to be operational even if they get into the basement of, say, St. Peter's Church, where food pantry is at, and they lose connection.
Yeah, and that's a great point, because, you know, they came to us wanting this in SharePoint, and then after we did a lot of our analysis and discovery, we all kind of came to the conclusion that that really isn't going to work, but this is the reason why, right? Like, you need it to work in St. Petersburg Church, and you need it to be on an iPad, right? So it's not that we don't like SharePoint, because we do love working with SharePoint. It's just that for that particular customer and that business need, there was a better solution. And so that's kind of part of that process, is really coming up with what is the best technology for you based on your business need. And you can see here everything from, you know, healthcare to construction to nonprofit. It's really about solving a business problem using technology. And I think this is what, you know, we really wanted to share with you today, is that there's so many possibilities, and it's not just about application development. It's really looking into your business and figuring out how do we solve some real big, you know, problems, concerns, everything from compliance to efficiency to, you know, like I said, differentiating from your competition, and really improving your overall business and culture. So speaking of, now, so a lot of times people say, well, I can do this internally myself, you know, survey my team and talk to my end users. But really what you need is a team of designers, analysts who have a background in human-centric design. You know, this is what Kyle and some of our other team members have studied and have experience with, right? You need to be able to define the long-term vision for the application, and make sure that it works with the technology. So you have to have that technical expertise, just like we just talked about, and be able to outline and rapid prototype that internal team experience or customer experience, whoever you call your customer. And that is what really sets the direction for the high fidelity prototype that we were just showing you, because you have to come up with that first before you start. You know, you have to know what you're painting before you get the paintbrush and start painting on your canvas. And then Sean, if you can move to the next slide. And so, you know, for those of you who have been like ready, you've been thinking about this, but you've kind of been putting it on a back burner because you don't have the time or you didn't know how long this would take. What we wanted to do today is for the first 2 people that respond via email, we'll also send out a survey at, you can send it to ask@mxotech.com. We're gonna offer a discovery type session, which is gonna help you define your vision and X factor for the application. We're going to consult with our user experience professionals. So Kyle's going to be one of them. You're going to work with Sean. And we're going to do 2 or 4-hour sessions or 1 8-hour session doing this rapid prototyping to your specifications based on what you have to help you brainstorm and define that vision. So we normally charge for this. It's about $3,000 to $5,000 that we do. This is not a free thing that we've ever done, but we wanted to do it today. And if you email us, we just ask that you email us like, what's your idea? Why do you want to do this, right? Like, what business impact would this make for you? And we're going to do it for free for 2 people. Now, if you have just questions and wanted to talk about if this is something that could work for you, or want to just, you know, have another kind of consultation session with our team, please email us about that as well. We're happy to, you know, talk to you and give you some feedback on, you know, maybe a platform that you've been thinking about, whether it's within your existing business or something new that you want to do. We're happy to do that consultation as well. So again, you could email that to ask@mxotech.com. And you'll work with Sean and Kyle. I mean, these are the 2 guys you're going to work with, plus some other team members. I think that's it for today. Wanted to open it up for questions right now for people. If you have any questions right now about it that we'd like to address, we have a few minutes left. I think, let's see, we had this till 11:30. I'd love to hear from you guys. Maybe anything that we didn't cover, or that you need clarification from previous slides. I know, Sean, I have one question is like, why not just use Excel for some of these things? You know, someone asked me that earlier, why go through this process? Why not use Excel?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a lot of times businesses will start off with something like Excel or Access because it's extremely easy to use. It's familiar. Storing some information about a customer or a bid or a job or something like that in Excel, and then emailing that to, you know, the couple people in the office is a good way to start. However, when your business grows, many of the clients we worked with started off small, obviously, and have grown over the last several years. That process becomes a barrier to scaling. And you know, the example, the construction firm that we mentioned earlier, is a perfect case study for that, because they were relying on Access and Word docs and things like that being passed around the office or saved to file shares. It didn't allow them to do any sort of system integration to retrieve data from various systems. And it certainly wasn't streamlined. And as we mentioned, their bidding process could take up to 2 weeks. Being able to take something from 2 weeks to 2 hours is huge, huge for scaling. And it's not just for scaling that you'd want to consider moving away from like just using Excel or Access. It's also difficult to aggregate that data and turn it into actual information if it just lives in a variety of Excel documents. You know, if you have a centralized web-based application, it's easy, once the data is in one spot, it's easy to make reporting and metrics that your company can really rely on. So that would be a few reasons to not use Excel
Sean,
necessarily.
I have another question for you. Why didn't Greater Chicago Food Depository just go out and buy something off the shelf? Why build it?
So one of the things that we do too is when a customer has a need, we'll take a look at what's on the market for them first. Sometimes it is better to buy something off the shelf. An example of that is, if you're a mid-sized to large business, you probably aren't going to commission MXOtech to build you a CRM, because there are a bunch of CRMs out there. A lot of them are good. It doesn't make sense to have us build you one, because there's something out there that could meet that need quite easily. But the food depository has specific needs with specific integrations to their systems. And they needed something somewhat quick and just tailored to their needs. So there was nothing out there that does exactly what they needed, that would integrate with their ERP. And so that was one of the reasons why it made sense for us to build an iOS app for them. So that's part of our process too, is looking to make sure that there isn't something that could more easily and probably readily meet a customer's need.
All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I really appreciate everyone who joined. Sean, Kyle, thank you for your participation today. Awesome job. I learned a lot myself. And so I think we're going to end and give you 5 minutes back to your day. Have a fantastic week, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Look forward to hearing from you.